Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have kind of a surprise video for you guys. I was not actually planning on filming today, but last night I checked my mailbox and I was very surprised and excited to see that Alter Ego sent me their new Artemis palette, which, as many of you might know if you've been hearing the buzz about this thing, it is meant to be a dupe for the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I was so excited to hear this announcement because I've had my eye on that Metropolis palette for quite a while. In fact, I believe when I first talked about my interest in trying out Alter Ego, I think I specifically requested that they dupe this palette. No, I'm not saying that they actually heard my plea and I'm the one to thank for this by any means. I am sure a lot of people had been hoping that they would dupe that palette, because let's just take a look at the shades inside here. This is just such a beautiful color story. Now, I personally do not own the original Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. However, my friend Jen here on YouTube did just put up a video where she actually physically compared this to the original Metropolis palette. She did an eye look side by side and also swatches side by side. So I will link that video down below for you guys if you are interested in seeing how this actually compares to the original palette. But for today, we are simply going to come up with an eye look and talk a little bit about this beautiful color story. Before we jump into that eye look, I want to welcome any of you that are new to my channel. I hope that you will consider subscribing, hit that notification bell just so that you don't miss out on my new videos when they are uploaded. And with that out of the way, let's jump into this very beautiful palette. So I'm prepared today with a nice little camouflage shirt. I'm really feeling these kind of brown and khaki vibes. But let's quickly take a closer look at this palette. So this palette is a bit larger than their other Natasha Denona dupes. Here is the size difference right here. So you can see that it is quite a bit larger and there are a lot more shadows inside here. And that's the same with the original Natasha Denona shadows. The Metropolis palette, while I think the pan sizes inside the Metropolis palette are smaller than the pan sizes inside the full size Natasha Denona palettes, there are more shades inside here. So this is a 28 shade palette, whereas this one right here, which is a dupe for the gold palette, is a 15 shade palette. So you're really getting almost double the amount of shades in here. Here's the closer look at the shades swatched. As you can see, there are a lot of browns, a beautiful vibrant red, we have some oranges, some golds, some teals, some khaki greens. This really is a color story that I am completely drawn to. So this palette will be available on Thursday, July 30th on the Alter Ego website. It is $22. Their original palettes, which are again a little bit smaller, retail for $16. So I actually think that's a really good value considering you're getting almost double the amount of shades. Now, there were a couple things that I noticed when swatching this. There are a lot of shades that are similar to each other. So even though you're getting 28 shades inside here, I feel like you could get more variety, but I really am interested to play with the textures inside here because there is a lot of different textures going on. There are some traditional mattes, there are some more creamy mattes that are meant to dupe the Natasha Denona creamy formula, and they are a different formula. Like, you can feel it when you swatch them. I'm very interested to play with them with a brush on my eyes. I personally don't have a lot of experience with the Natasha Denona creamy formula. I do have her original Sunrise palette, her Love palette, and her Bronze palette, and each of those have some of those formulas in them, and they are very different and very unique. But because I haven't played with this palette yet, I haven't yet tried out the Alter Ego version of that eyeshadow formula. So that's something I'll probably have to try out a little bit more and keep you updated on. But also the shimmers inside here, you get a lot of variety. Some of them are more sheer, kind of glittery lid toppers. Some of them are very foiled and reflective metallics, and some are just kind of traditional, softer, more satiny shimmers. That is one thing I really love about Natasha Denona, and also the other Alter Ego palettes, is the variety that you get, not just in colors, but also in finishes. I think it can make for some really fun and dimensional eye looks. So let's jump into the eye look. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do today, but I really am into these kind of khaki shades right here. I really want to kind of match my shirt today, which is something I really love to do. So let's just kind of jump into it and give it a try. So today I want to use my rougher brushes. These are my very favorite brushes. They apply any shadow that I have the very best. So I wanted to use these today just so I get a better sense of how these formulas, which are kind of unique to me, really work. So we're going to start off by going in with this shade right here. This is the shade Entice. And I'm going to take that on my Refer number 16 brush. And by the way, I do already have the Alter Ego eyeshadow primer on my lids as well, which is a really nice eyeshadow primer. If you're on their website and you need a new primer, it's pretty affordable. I think it's only about $5 or $6, I think, and it does work really well. Okay, that applied beautifully, even with one layer. This is a second layer. I added just a tiny bit to the tip. I feel like that's pretty pigmented. This shade is not a creamy matte. This is a just traditional matte, and I really like Alter Ego's matte formula. I did mention this in the last Alter Ego video that I did, how I think Alter Ego's formula is a little bit better than some of the other dupe kind of brands that I've tried. It feels a little bit more pigmented, a little bit more high quality, and also their packaging feels a lot more quality and sturdy. And that's something you'll definitely feel when you try out their palettes. The palettes, you can tell, are just put together really, really well. They don't feel cheap like they would be a dupe palette. They feel a little bit more high-end. All right, so I really want to start to build up some depth on the outer corner. Should we do a halo eye today? Let's maybe do a halo eye today. That sounds fun and different. I want to take this shade down here. This is one of the creamy matte formulas. You can just tell. It's just a different matte formula. When you swatch it, it goes on a little bit more sheer, so I'm really interested to see how this applies with a brush. I'm going to take my Rougher No. 2 brush, which is kind of a tightly packed small smudger brush. This is my favorite, actually, lower lash line brush, but I also love this one for packing color on specific areas. And I feel like it will work really good with this formula. I love using this brush when I'm doing a halo eye because it is smaller and it makes for really good placement, which is important when you're doing a halo eye. Not that I'm an expert. I feel like that sounded like I thought I was an expert. I'm not. I don't do halo eyes very often, and honestly I don't know that I do them as well as probably some other people do, but that's okay. That's a really pretty, pretty green. I love a good muted green. I did feel like as I was swatching these this morning, I think especially with those creamy matte formulas, how they swatch is not necessarily indicative of how they apply to the eyes. But I was surprised to see after looking at how this palette looks inside the pan that there wasn't more depth in the swatches. So I'm interested to see how the depth kind of plays out on the eyes, because some of the shades I felt like swatched a little bit lighter than they appeared to be in the pan. And a lot of those ones that I felt like did that were the more creamy matte formulas. So my guess is they kind of need to be built up a little bit more. I'm definitely noticing as I'm adding a second and third layer here to this outer corner that it's really starting to deepen up, as you can kind of see. So this right here is my third dip into the shadow on this outer corner, and now I'm really starting to see that depth that I feel like you can see inside the pan. Actually, this is not even that deep of a shade. There's deeper shades in here, but it's really giving me a lot of depth on the eye. I don't know if I mentioned this shade name. It's the shade Prowl. This palette makes me really excited for fall. Is anyone else out there ready for fall? This happens every year. The first week of July, I'm like in it for summer. I'm in it for 4th of July. I'm really in that kind of watermelon and swimming and that kind of a mood. But within 2 weeks, the heat really gets to me and I'm like, okay, time to put the heat and the shorts away. I am ready to pull out my jeans, my boots, see the leaves changing colors. And I start to feel this way at the end of July. And this doesn't actually happen where I live until like the end of September. So we have a bit of time before that's going to happen, but I just start getting that feeling, you know, that changing season feeling, which if you live in a location where you have multiple seasons, I think you'll probably be able to relate. I feel like I need to add just a little bit more to this inner corner. This is always the tricky part with a halo eye. I never know how far in to take this shade. I always want to be careful not to get it in this area because I really don't want to darken that area. Otherwise, I just don't think it looks very good to darken up that area. It makes it look like a shadow, like as in like a shadow, like a dark circle shadow and not an eyeshadow shadow. I don't know if that made sense. I don't like to pull my concealer out to do a halo eye, but sometimes I think it probably would be easier to actually just put the shade all over the lid, pop some concealer in the center, and then put a more brightening shade on top of it. I think that might probably be an easier way to do it, but let me know how many of you guys wear a halo eye on occasion and how you prefer to do it. I would love to hear. So I just put a tiny bit more on the tip of my brush and I'm just running that under this outer kind of third of the lower lash line. So I want to just take this brush right here. This is, it doesn't look clean. I did wipe it off very well with a little bit of makeup remover, so most of the shadow from yesterday should be off of it, but I'm going to just take this and run it through this kind of socket just to make sure that's blended right up through my socket. I have a tendency to lift my eyes when I do my eye looks, and sometimes I don't pull that shade up as high as it actually needs to go when my eyes are relaxed, which is always tricky if you have hooded eyes. Alright, so I can't decide what I'm going to put on my lid. Let's go ahead and finger swatch a couple of these shades. I'm kind of leaning towards this shade, which is the shade Scent. It's kind of it actually reminds me a bit of a shade inside the gold palette. It's kind of a bronze with a bit of a green sort of shift to it. It's kind of a duochrome. This one also looks really pretty right here, the shade Provoke, which is just a very light gold. That could be really pretty. The shade Obscure, which is kind of a peach champagne. Okay, I think I do want to go with the duochrome. So let's take this shade Scent on my finger. And this is a little bit more of like a topper shade. So it's not super creamy or thick. It's a little bit more thin and kind of glittery, but not like chunky glitter. It's just like it's like a glitter topper shade. This kind of a formula kind of has grown on me. Now, Natasha Denona is not the only one to do this type of a formula. I know, I think I have shades similar to this in my Huda Beauty palette, also in, I think even ColourPop. It actually kind of reminds me of the ColourPop Super Shock formula, just a little bit. Like it's almost creamy and kind of thin and kind of glittery, but in a very non-chunky sort of way. I don't know if that makes sense. So I'm just taking this brush, which has nothing left on it, and just feathering through those edges to make sure they're nice and blended. Okay, that looks really, really pretty. Ooh, I love that. So I think I want to add just a little bit more to my lower lash line, but I want to try something different. I want to take this shade in the corner. This is the shade Guest, which is kind of a satin green. Oh, look at that pretty, pretty shade. I'm going to take that on my Rephr number 2 brush, and we're just going to run that. Actually, I want to take a cotton bud first, and I'm going to actually remove, I feel like I got this dark shade over here in a little bit too far, and I don't want my lower lash line to be too dark, so I'm kind of removing this from this like midsection right here, just so that dark shade is right there at the outer corner. Otherwise I have a feeling things are going to get very dark very quickly, and I never do like a dark lower lash line on myself. I just don't think it looks very good on me. Alright, hopefully that's good enough. So again, this is the shade Guest, and I'm just going to very lightly kind of tap and press this to my lower lash line, and I'm not going all the way in. I want to leave this section right here open so things don't get too dark, my eyes don't get too closed off. And I'm kind of just pulling it up into this outer corner just to even out that edge, round it out a little bit. Alright, now I do want to add just a little bit to my inner corner, and for this I think I'm going to take the lightest shade in the palette, which is the shade Obscure, which is kind of a peach champagne. And I'm taking that on my Rephr number 3 brush, and we're just going to pop this right onto my inner corner right here. Alright, so that's looking perfect. I do want to add a little bit of, rather than adding a pencil liner, I'm going to add a little bit of one of the dark browns in here just to see how deep these will show up on my eyes. Let's see, I think I want to go with this one down here, which is the shade Lure. So I'm just going to kind of build this up on my Rephr number 2 brush, and I want to just kind of start smudging this along this outer corner of my upper lash line. I really just want to see how deep this shade can kind of take me. Definitely added a lot more depth, hopefully you can see. And that was with just one dip. So these creamy matte formulas, they're very interesting. They don't apply like a traditional matte, and I feel this way about the Natasha Denona ones as well. So they do apply a lot better when you kind of pack them on. They're very easy to work with, but there is a bit of a learning curve in how to apply them. I just think it's not a difficult learning curve, but they're just different. They're a different formula than a traditional matte, which I guess you might assume that, but if you're going into this palette thinking that it's just a mix of mattes and shimmers, you will notice a difference between the creamy mattes and the traditional mattes, because they are very different in the way that they apply both with a brush and also with a finger. Alright, so I think we are good. The eyeshadow looks great. I'm going to finish off with just a couple of coats of my Thrive Cosmetics mascara, then I'll come back and share with you guys my final thoughts. Alright you guys, so here is the finished eye look. I'm absolutely thrilled with this eye look. It perfectly matches my shirt, which is what I was going for. I was very impressed with how these shadows applied today though. I was especially impressed with the creamy mattes. I was a little bit worried about those as I was swatching them, and I felt that same way about the original Natasha Denona creamy mattes. Anytime I swatch those with my finger, I think, these feel a little weird, but they actually apply beautifully with a brush, especially if you kind of pack them on and build them up. They're absolutely beautiful. You really can get a lot of depth out of them. Very excited about this. I cannot wait to keep playing with the shades inside here. There are so many shades that I would love to crack into. This palette would be a really fun candidate for a 7 looks video. So if you're interested in this one, or if you have the original Natasha Denona Metropolis palette and you would like some ideas on how to create 7 different looks, let me know if you guys are interested, because I think that would be a lot of fun. Big thank you to Alter Ego for sending this to me. I was completely planning on picking this up first thing Thursday morning, so I was so grateful to get it early in the mail from them. I would love to know how many of you guys are interested in this palette. I know there are quite a few of you. You've already left me some messages on Instagram. I, of course, am excited to keep using it. I know I'll get a lot of use out of this palette all year, but especially in the fall. This is like the perfect fall palette for me. You guys know how much I love my khaki and teal grains along with oranges and bronzes. I mean, I've said this from day one. The color story of the Metropolis palette, I feel like, was made for me. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. I'm gonna try very hard to get this up on Thursday. I'm filming it on Wednesday, so I'm gonna try really hard to edit it and get it up by tomorrow. So if you are interested in this palette, you'll have a chance to pick it up. I personally will already tell you guys from the eye look that I did today, from my experience with their other palettes, and from just what I know of their quality of both formula and packaging, I think it's absolutely worth the $22 price point if you are into the color story. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Thank you guys again for joining me today. I hope that you are all doing well. One more reminder to subscribe before you leave, and that is it for today. Thank you guys again. I will see you in my next one. Bye. Artemis, I said that weird. So this palette is a bit larger than their Real quick, let's talk about everything else that is on my face. I have for foundation a mix of the Misha BB Cream and the L'Oreal Infallible 24-hour fresh, is that what it's called? Fresh Wear Foundation. Have on my Milk Makeup bronzer stick in Baked, and on top of that I put a little bit of the NARS Laguna, but this is their sun-washed diffusing bronzer in the shade Laguna. I have my Physicians Formula Dewy Blush Elixir on again in the shade Gorgeous Peach, my Revlon Skin Lights highlighter. In my brows, the e.l.f. Wow Brow. On the lips, the Essence Because Duh lip liner along with Moonchild Gloss from ColourPop. Oh, and my Flower Beauty concealer.